We suggest that we take the closed session and postpone it to a next meeting or another meeting. But the closed session was do Ken's evaluation and report on that.
Next week.
Yeah.
Can we just fire them now?
There you go.
So we'll take that new business closed session off. All right. Resolution 2020-83, approval of inclusion under the WDETF income continuation insurance plan.
Continuation of funding.
Oh, my mistake, sorry. Resolution 2020-82, transfer of funds, continuation of COVID-19 public media campaign.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-83.
Okay, thank you. You're right. We can't have 5 people talk. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Dave. All right, we're good.
Okay, I'll make this one's pretty straightforward. What we're looking at doing is, again, we did a public media campaign. And if you look at the communication, it shows you the areas that we did. We did radio, billboard, and also the newspaper. We're looking at, just based off our activity, the initial campaign went through the end of this month. It's our understanding, and just based on what we're seeing in terms of trends, that we expect to have still a strong tourism population attending the county the next 2 months. So what I did is I reached out to those areas and got the pricing for extending those campaigns through the end of the year. And that'd be approximately $18,500. In the resolution, we're looking for up to $20,000 to use towards the media campaign. And again, we had time to take this through the process, so it wasn't an emergency decision, but we wanted to bring it through. Just in terms of it went through admin and also the finance, and now it's before your consideration today. The only thing I would point out is that from our standpoint, again, we're not aware of any additional CARES funding at this point in time. That could change, based off the election. So I'd assume right now that it would come fully out of our general contingency, which would leave us a balance of over $375,000. So it's definitely something that we can do.
Any questions? Not, we'll go to the voter board. Your vote is passed and voted 20 yes. Absent. Thank you. Resolution approval of inclusion under the WDETF income continuation insurance plan. Okay.
Sure. So both Grant and I'll bring up Kelly as the panelists as well. But really, the best way to explain this is it's an employee benefit. And in essence, it's very similar to a program that we have now by a private carrier. We have Aflac that's available to employees for completing their income should something happen with a disability. The state of Wisconsin has had this program, and it's something that we've watched and monitored, and Kelly can provide more background. But right now, they will allow us to, I guess, join into the program and provide that benefit to our employees. And for this year, simply because their fund is so strong, there's no cost for us to participate. So we brought this forward to the risk committee for their consideration, and they recommended approval. It came to the county board because we do need an authorizing resolution to actually sign up for the program. And I can leave it to both Kelly and to Grant if they want to add anything more detailed in terms of the program itself.
Maybe even just to get a little bit more simplistic, all that adoption of this resolution does is provide that Door County has elected to participate in this particular income continuation insurance plan. Nothing more, nothing less. And as Ken indicated, it's a necessary prerequisite to submit to the state to become a participating employer. We've provided an addendum to the resolution that describes almost in painful detail what the income continuation plan is. But again, what we need to remember, this is something that is entirely run by the state, can change year to year, and the employees will decide whether or not they want to participate in this or not, depending on their particular circumstances.
So it's up to each individual employee to decide whether to do this or not. We're just authorizing the program to be offered.
And as Kelly will explain, there is a certain level of participation we need at the front end from the employees to make us, to allow us to participate. Maybe that's a good segue to Kelly.
Yep, Kelly, can you hear us? You have the floor. Right. Let's go.
Yeah.
Are you on? You're on the floor. Calling you.
Oh, I cannot hear you, Ken. I'm sorry. I can see that you unmuted me, but I can't hear anybody. So
Oh, it's coming through.
so you can hear me, but I still can't hear you guys.
Okay, well, I can just tell you in general, there's a certain
I
percentage.
have no sound.
Okay. And I can't get it right now.
Maybe Grant could give me some sign language.
I just need to, okay, so I got it.
Why doesn't she call?
I can answer any questions. If not, I'll Kelly come down. But the short version is that we have to have, I believe, out of our total employees, we have to have a certain percentage of enrollment for us to be finally qualified. So whatever that number is, we work with our employees. We have to hit a magic number. Once we hit that magic number, that resolution along with those number of employees will get us into the program. So that's the best way to explain it.
And we suspect, since there's a premium holiday, so there's no cost for the employer or the employee, there's just really no reason not to sign up.
Correct.
Alexis?
Thank you. So I have a question, and I have a clarifying question and then more questions about it. So the resolution says that this went through the administrative committee, but you said the rest committee. Did they go through both?
So we went through administrative, but we did explain that it was coming forward. The rest was, we did mention it as the discussion for it.
Okay, so this fits in within the insurance fund. Okay, and then my second question is, even though that there is a holiday now, there hasn't always been a premium holiday. So how much would this cost? And then my understanding of this program is that from an employee benefit standpoint, there's a build-up period where you qualify to get into it. So it's just like signing up day one doesn't mean that you have coverage. Is that correct?
There is a waiting period, and if I understand your question correctly, and the employees get to elect what the waiting period is, and if you have a shorter waiting period, you pay a higher premium. And if you have a longer waiting period, you pay a lower premium. And to get back to the question about the premium holiday, you are correct. As I understand it, there was a premium holiday for 2020 and one's anticipated for 2021 and even 2022. But the important thing to note is Door County will know in April, because we need to relay that information to our employees who are participants in this plan, what the premium will be for the succeeding plan year. So more the employees, and from the Door County standpoint, the employer, if we decide that the juice is no longer worth the squeeze, the premium we're paying is too high for the benefit that's being received, we can always withdraw from the program.
Correct.
Laura? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alexis.
Well, I was just going to say that my understanding was that, because I'm in my day job in this program as well, so there was a period where I just want to make clear that even what you're talking about is 30 to 60 days of when you have an injury that you need to wait in order to qualify. But what I'm saying is that you have to, when I became enrolled in the program, it was like a 2-year period before I could actually, anyway, it doesn't matter, I guess. I just wanted to clarify that it's for the employees, it's important for the employees to understand what they're actually getting with this long term, not just with the holiday, premium holiday and why not. But when you actually get into it, it's a little more complicated than just free money. So.
And we've talked about that, the administrator also at the risk management, and I'm trying to put this politely, but I'm an employee, so I can speak to myself. We are all adults, and the county will make this available to the employees. And if I'm interested in it, then I have an obligation to make sure to contact the state and become educated before I make a decision. I know Kelly, not speaking for her, but since she can't talk, you can't hear, we can do that. She would plan on bringing in somebody from the state to perhaps hold, not, well, we don't bring people anymore, they do remotely, to offer some sessions. But this program changes from year to year, and the employees really are going to have to make a decision upfront and then on an annual basis, whether it's in their enlightened self-interest to continue or not. But the premiums, the examples they give in the materials that accompanied the resolution are compared very favorable to what you get with Aflac.
Thank you.
Laura?
Yeah, just a question. The holiday premium was mentioned, the term. There was discussion at risk management about doing a credit back for December on the premiums paid. Just that reminded me about that. And it was decided we decided not to with COVID because the numbers are coming in lower, but with just potential with higher numbers for insurance claims coming up because of COVID. So that was not related, but just triggered my memory that we had talked about that. And I do believe we did that last December where we gave a credit back to employees and their premiums, but this year it was decided not to because of what was going on with the pandemic.
Kelly, are you making a motion to amend?
No, I didn't. No.
You need to clear that off.
Sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else? What's that? No. By voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passed. Thank you.
And I did see Lisa vote yes, and then Vinny, if that's not correct, you can send me a message or clarify.
Resolution 2020-84, temporary COVID-19 paid leave first responder and public safety positions. There you go. We have a motion in the second.
Oh, sure.
I can.
Grant and I were like in that little mental discussion.
We're waiting for Kelly to explain. The resolution itself, and I will readily admit it's not always the case, explains fairly succinctly what we're doing here. Going back to March, certain positions, the first responders and public safety, in Door County terms, that would be employees of our sheriff's departments and of our emergency medical services department, were excluded from the emergency paid sick leave and expanded family and medical leave under the Federal Families and First Coronavirus Response Act and the supplemental paid leave that we granted to general municipal employees. The reasons for that being quite simple, if you remember, those employees were on an emergency schedule. We needed them to be available. And there was also, because of the emergency schedule, particularly for the sheriff's department, they were working roughly 7 days out of 28 days. So it wasn't felt that time off was a significant concern. Fast forward to the end of September, beginning of October, it came to our attention that, one, obviously, COVID-19 persists and all the reasons for granting the leave continued, that we ought to include the positions that were excluded from the emergency paid sick leave and expanded family and medical leave and supplemental paid leave, something similar. And what we came up with was what we're calling the temporary COVID-19 paid leave, which mirrors elements of the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act leave. So what this resolution would do would grant up to 2 weeks, up to 80 hours of paid leave at the employee's regular rate of pay. There are 2 qualifying reasons for this paid leave. One, if the employee is quarantined pursuant to federal, state, or local government order or advice of a healthcare provider, or is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis. 2 other important elements here is that temporary COVID-19 paid leave does not count as time worked for purposes of overtime pay or compensatory time off. We don't want to build overtime or compensatory time off with these employees by the use of the leave. And second, if it's not used by December 31st, 2020, it sunsets and it's not paid out. You have to meet one of the qualifying reasons to use the leave. And we've tied the termination date to the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act's termination date, with the understanding, or perhaps more hope, that there will be some federal legislation that extends beyond the end of this year. Again, circling back to my initial point, is the COVID-19 continues and the impacts of COVID-19 continue, and we fully anticipate they'll continue beyond the end of the year. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. It was really a fairness issue, as we wanted to include these employees in something for all the general municipal employees, if we weren't able to do it earlier.
Thank you, Brent. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't going to ask a question, but Grant, you brought up right at the end there on line 186, upon discharge of separation from employment or after December 31st, it can't be utilized. And you said it's tying into the federal, and we would hope, or if it's needed, we would hope the feds would do something, but then that would mean we would also need to do something. Could we do something as simple as changing, amending it to not say December 31st, 2020, but with the expiration of the federal CARES Act or whatever it is, so that then it would just be, it would, again, following, it would carry with that, and then it would be done if it was done, and if it wasn't, then we wouldn't, what I mean? Save us more work down the road. Thanks. I don't know if it's possible or not.
That's a good idea if that were the case, but the federal act does sunset on December 31st, 2020. So would there have to be new legislation, and we would end up having to bring that forward for the general municipal employees anyway. And what we would anticipate doing is bringing it forward with this group of employees. It's a good thought. It's just.
Got it. Thanks.
Dave, can I go?
Just for the general public clarification, because of the use of 2 words in this resolution, this resolution is directly related to county outdoor employees, correct?
Correct.
Because classically, the word first responder is recognized as mostly municipal first responders. My town employees that I have, and I want to make sure the general public understands this has nothing to do with that classic understanding of first responders.
No, the definition of first responders and public safety position for employees in this resolution come right from the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And it does create confusion because locally they mean different things.
And that's why I wanted to just publicly recognize during this meeting.
Vinny?
I'm just curious if maybe it's not in this part, but in the 14-day or 2-week allowance, are employees able to quarantine and still work from home? So they're not using those days? Because I can imagine people may have multiple times they're told to quarantine.
Unfortunately, with the public safety and first responders, no. Our general municipal employees generally can work from home when they're quarantined if they're feeling up to it. But generally speaking, law enforcement and paramedics really don't have the ability to do that. So that's sort of another reason to give them this bank so that they can make use of this without drawing down on some of their other paid leave.
It sounds good. I just hope that it is enough, because I feel like they may have more exposure than any employees based on the line of work. And I just wouldn't want them to have to continually quarantine without pay past this first time.
Thank you. Todd?
Just a quick question. I'm sure that there probably are there any of those employees that fall under this that would have had a quarantine event prior to now? And how would that be treated? Is there retro on this or just moving forward?
Well, nobody asked, but I can answer. The effective date is September 16th, 2020. And we calculated that based on discussions with the department heads and an understanding that that should cover the September 16, 2020 effective date, anybody that would have had a qualifying event up to that point. So the answer to your question is yes, it's retroactive to September 16, 2020. We're fairly confident it covers anybody that would have had a qualifying event.
No other questions? We will move to the voter board. Let's pass on a vote of 20 yes, 0 nay, 1 absent, excused. Thank you. Last resolution, 2020-85, support and repair of the Potawatomi State Park Observation Tower. We have a motion, second. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This motion basically supports what folks in the community have been doing as far as studying the situation with the tower. The folks like the Sturgeon Bay Historical Society, and it also stands in partnership with our neighboring communities, the city of Sturgeon Bay and the town of Nassauwappi, who have asked the DNR to take a closer look at the situation. And really the crux, my understanding is the crux really came that when the DNR first looked at working on this tower, recognizing that there were structural issues, given its age and the time, that they didn't look at it from the lens of a historic structure. And so therefore their scope of work didn't take history into account. But if it did take, if that original scope of work, were to take history into account, that then the situation wouldn't have gotten so dire, because when they looked at it just from repairing, without thinking about history, things like metal stair treads and metal railings were added to the structure because they last longer and take less maintenance, and and that's where we start to get into the over 50% repair replacement for ADA compliance. And so anyway, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. People, if any more questions, please ask.
I would just add one thing. I did receive a letter today in the mail from the Wisconsin Historical Society, which states that they are going to consider historical designation for the State Park Tower on the November 20th meeting that they're having, November 2020. So, FYI. Any other questions? David Hagel.
Just a comment, if somebody would make sure on our next meeting after that meeting to just give us a synopsis of what the discussion was, if there's some way to find that out.
Anybody else? No money, right? Okay, so by voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Ordinances, none. Special reports. We'll talk about Tom Washington.
Sure, I'll just do just a brief update. I did provide it in prior communication to the board, but I thought it was good news, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We did have I had a communication with the town chairman. They are interested in trying to make a decision to work with the county. They have hired Balin Buildings to do an evaluation for their portion of the project. And they're looking at their existing building. They're looking at evaluating the 10-acre site again for their use, and then also the county site. We're hoping to have a preliminary budget and I guess scope of work, which way they think they'll go by early November. They also invited me up for November 11th to give a presentation on our project. And the goal for the town chairman is to have some type of a vote. I think there's a meeting on November 17th of kind of in or out in working with the county. So I thought that was good news. I just wanted to report it to the county board that we're having those discussions. And I appreciate the leadership that's being shown by the town chairman to see if we're going to be partners in the project or not. And once I have those meetings or hear anything, I will continue to take one forward.
The new business, we're moving the closed session administrative evaluation to the next meeting. Oral committee reports from anybody? Review committee minutes. Vouchers, claims, and bills. Next regular county board meeting is November 10th and 11th if necessary at 9 a.m. The meeting for DM for today is 1027.
Mr. Chairman, with that.
Karen?
I had asked if we could have an update on the election and how that's going. I was hoping that maybe Jill could.
Sure.
What would you like to know?
Just because it's been in the news how hard it is going to be to count the ballots. So I was just wondering how many, if you had numbers as far as how many.
Kind of an overview.
Yeah, like an overview of how it's going, if you're overwhelmed, if it's different, if you're like.
We're probably right now at about 50 to 55% of our anticipated turnout has either requested an absentee ballot or voted absentee in person. We don't anticipate as a county to be short on poll workers, nor do we anticipate that it's going to be late into the evening for processing and counting, and as well as getting votes through. So we're in pretty good shape here in the county and aren't anticipating any hiccups in that process.
Okay, cool. Have you heard anything about the post office, like how they're, if you think it'll be delayed? I heard somebody, or they said you want to get them in the mail by tomorrow even, if you think that's that a good date to state.
They said the post office has encouraged people for at least a week ahead of time to mail. So that would be today. Don't wait till last minute. And the post office has been in touch with all of the municipal clerks as well as myself. And they anticipate any mail received on election day, regardless of what time. They will do their very, very best to get those delivered to the polling places outside of their normal delivery schedule. So they have requested addresses of all those polling places, and they have assigned specific carriers to deliver anything that is coming through yet late on election day.
Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that being said, Madam Clerk, you don't anticipate any long lines at the polls. The 53% of the registered voters have already voted. It should be a very smooth process, as normally is the case around here, correct?
I would anticipate, yes, relatively smooth process.
Thank you.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks, Kara, for bringing this up. It's been a long meeting and the brain's already full, but this is important. And obviously this is the week to ask the questions and understand more about this. I'm glad and thank you, Jill, for all your hard work and helping, and just making sure that we're running a smooth election. Just a question, and this is me just not knowing, if someone requests an absentee ballot, and whether they get it or not, or what, can they still go to the poll and vote, and then somehow that absentee ballot just isn't counted? Or if you request an absentee ballot, is that what you have to bring to the polls or get it turned in?
No, if you requested an absentee ballot and have now chosen to vote in person on election day, you can destroy that ballot. Okay. Do not bring it with you. If you do bring it with you, you will vote that ballot as an absentee ballot and put it in an envelope, and it is processed as an absentee ballot.
Okay.
So if you're intending to now go to the polls and vote in person, the ballot can be destroyed on the voter's end of things.
Thank you.
Mr. Fisher, do you have something else to say?
Well, I was going to make my usual motion to adjourn if there's no further business be transacted, but I see I didn't get to the button in time. So, but that being said, there is one thing I would ask, and we had fun with that today, everybody jumping in to get their name there. I would respectfully request that when we go to a committee and you call on the chairman of that committee to explain it, that we would all, if we had our day of fun, that we would all hold back. We've even got people making the motion who aren't even on the committee. At least allow the chairman the ability to present it and make that motion.
Is that a confession?
Is what?
Is that a confession?
Well, I did it too. I said we all had fun with it today. There's nothing wrong with that, but to be a little bit more professional, we should let the chairman make the motion at least.
Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
It's November 9th at 10 a.m. for highway.